Hello students, my name is Jason Cook and I work at Montana State University, Bozeman. I'm the wheat breeder and wheat geneticist, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the small grains that are grown in the Gallatin Valley and then also across Montana. So have you guys ever heard of the small grains called wheat or barley?
Yes.
Okay. And have you seen that out in the field before? So yeah, it's kind of in the beginning of the season, say like May, June, when you're driving around in the countryside, you'll see, just this nice green kind of grassy lawn growing in the fields. And more than likely, it's either wheat or it could be barley that's growing in the fields. And as the plants grow, they'll start differentiating, and then you can start seeing some differences in these crops. And so right here, we have an example of a barley plant. This one is just starting to what we call heading out. And so it's when like these, the heads of the plants that contain the seeds, they're starting to protrude from the stems. And so you guys can take a look at that. And so some of the distinctive features of barley is that the heads are kind of more linear, they're long, and then they have these really long kind of string looking things, and we call these awns. And then the other plant that you could be seeing growing out in the field, this is called wheat. And so wheat kind of has a more bushy looking head, and this plant's pretty much fully headed out now. And you can see the awns aren't quite as long as you see with barley, and this is a nice way you can differentiate between the two crops when you're driving around the valley and you see these crops growing out in the field. So once these plants mature, both of them turn a nice kind of gold yellow color, and then that means the plants are ready for harvest. And what the farmer is harvesting are the grains or seeds from the heads of these plants. So the first one we'll talk about is barley. So this is what barley seeds look like. And then this is what wheat looks like. So wheat has, what we grow in Montana tends to have a more red color versus barley. And so that's kind of one of the main ways you can differentiate the seeds from the two crops. Do you guys have any idea what barley is used for?
Like cereal.
Cereal, yeah?
That's about the only thing that's really used for.
Have you ever had like soup that has barley in it? Well, soup is another product that food barley is used for. And then, do you guys like Whoppers?
Yeah.
So Whoppers are actually made from barley, and the way that works is the seeds of the barley is gone through a process called malting. And what malting does is it produces a sugar. And it's a special kind of sugar called malt. And then that malt is then used as the main ingredient of Whoppers. So the other one with wheat, do you know what wheat is used for?
Like bread.
Yep, bread is the most commonly, yep, cereal. We got crackers, we got bread. So wheat is ground into a fine flour, which many of you have probably seen before in your parents' kitchen. And then from that flour, that's what bread is made from. So wheat generally out in the field is measured in bushels. And so bushels is essentially a volume of that would fit in this container right here. So this is roughly the size of what one bushel is. And the standard weight of one bushel in wheat is 60 pounds. From 60 pounds of wheat, or one bushel, typically we're able to make 70 loaves of bread from one of these bushels, which is a lot of loaves. And then wheat is grown on, out in the fields, and those fields are measured in units called acres. An acre is roughly about the same size of like Bobcat Stadium. And just for example purposes, we'll say a farmer grows approximately like 45 bushels, so 45 of these in that 1 acre. One bushel is able to make 70 loaves of bread. How many loaves of bread off of that 1 acre that produced 45 bushels, how many loaves of bread did it make? 3,150. And that's how many loaves of bread you would get off 1 acre if that 1 acre produces like 45 bushels per acre. So In Montana, in total, we grow wheat on 5.5 million acres. So that's a lot of loaves of bread that are produced in the state overall. And the Gallatin Valley produces a lot of loaves on its own.
Hello everyone, my name is Uta McKelvy and I'm an Extension Associate Specialist at Montana State University. And today I'm here and I want to talk to you a little bit about pulse crops. So pulse crops are a special kind of crop. They're in a big family of legumes. So legumes are all sorts of plants where the seed is growing in a pod, right? So soybeans can be pulse crops, even peanuts. Do you guys like peanuts? But so pulse crops are actually these special pulses that we like to eat dry. So for example, chickpeas and lentils and dried peas and all sorts of beans. These are all considered pulse crops. And in Montana, we actually grow quite a bit of pulse crops. So here we have a couple of examples of what peas look like. So maybe you want to have a look at those seeds and like kind of describe to me what they look like. So these ones are kind of yellow looking, right? Yeah. And they have a smooth surface, but what about these ones? They're green in color, right? And then what do you think about these ones? What do they look like?
Red and dark green. It's kind of a little faded.
Yeah, exactly. They're speckled and dark green and a little bit smaller. So peas can have all sorts of, sizes and colors and fancy patterns on their coat. And the same applies to lentils. So here we have a couple of examples of what lentils can look like. And then another pulse crop are chickpeas. So here I have two examples of chickpeas. So they're small chickpeas and we call them desi chickpeas. And they're large chickpeas and we call them kabuli. Another word for chickpeas is garbanzo beans. Maybe you've heard that before in the supermarket. So you can see the seeds of chickpeas and lentils, they come in all different sizes and colors. But let's have a look at what the plants look like once you grow them out. So this is a chickpea plant. So you can see it grows like this and these leaves have, they're a little bit like a little sawtooth around. And I don't know, see here, this chickpea right now is flowering, so the flowers can be white. And from that flower is gonna grow the pod that contains the chickpea seed inside. This here is a lentil plant. So the lentil plants, the leaves look a little bit smaller and they have smooth edges. And what is interesting about lentils is that they can have these tendrils at the end, so with which they hold on to each other and hold each other up in the field. And then this is what a pea plant can look like. You can see the pea plants, they have these much bigger leaves compared to the lentils and the chickpeas, right? See how the peas too have all these tendrils? So they use that to hold each other on this little scaffold, or in the field, when they grow in a big field and they don't have these stakes and scaffolds, they hold on to each other to grow up. All right, so why am I talking about pulse crops? Because they're a really important crop for Montana. In 2019, Montana was the state that produced the most peas and the most chickpeas and the most lentils of all the states in the US that are producing these crops. Montana produced over 1 billion pounds of peas, and they also produced 250 million pounds of chickpeas. So 140,000 pounds of chickpeas on just 1 acre, like the size of the Bobcat Stadium, produces 318,000 cans of chickpeas. Right, but you know what? Most of the chickpeas and peas and lentils that we grow in the United States are actually being exported to other countries. Like India really likes to eat chickpeas, and China, they're buying a lot of those crops from us. So pulse crops is what I call a team player. And so why they're team players is because they have a really cool feature that not a lot of other crops have. They are able to actually use the nitrogen from the atmosphere and turn it into a nitrogen form that they can actually use for their growth. And so look at these roots here. Can you see these nodules, little knots on the roots of this pea plant here? So this is a nodule, And this is what the plant grows to house these bacteria, which are called rhizobia. And these bacteria live in this little nodule and fix the nitrogen from the air, and then they deliver this nitrogen to the plant. So the pea plant in this example can grow strong and tall and produce a lot of seed. And so that means that a farmer doesn't have to add as much nitrogen to the soil to help the pulse crops grow. But that also means that whichever crop is grown in the same field after the pea has been harvested also benefits from, the remaining plant tissue that stays in the field. It decomposes and releases this nitrogen, and so the next crop needs less nitrogen added in addition to the field.
Hello, I'm Larry Holzworth. I'm a plant material specialist. So today I'm going to talk about forages. So what a forage is that's what you feed all the animals, the cattle, the sheep, the goats. That's a forage. Jason talked about the wheat and barley and the fact that you get the seeds to feed people. Well, these plants also are a forage crop for livestock. You feed them livestock. So just a little before these plants get to this stage, they call it a boot stage, they actually cut this and make hay. So there's different kinds of feed. So like Jason talked about the seeds, and so for livestock, we actually what we call roll the seeds. And this is oats, and we roll it so that the livestock has a better digestion of that plant so that they can utilize it. Livestock are very, very unique. They eat all this fiber stuff that we can't eat. So they also eat the seed, but they can also eat the hay, in other words, the dried crops, in this case, wheat and barley, or alfalfa that we dry and we bale, like these bales here. And so they have the ability to digest that and convert it into energy and to protein so we can have a steak. So these crops here are annuals, and so they have to be planted every year, and we can make hay out of them, or we can harvest them for seed for food for us and the animals. This plant, alfalfa, is a perennial plant. In other words, it grows, it regrows. It has regenerative capability, so you can cut this alfalfa off and it will regenerate, and you can get another cutting if you take good care of it. Whereas these, you cut it off once and that's it. You make hay out of that, and this plant won't grow back. 2/3 of Montana is rangeland. And so the other option, we have seed for animals, we have hay for animals. Hay is just preserved feed for animals. And we have grazing for animals. In other words, the animals are actually using live plants. They're actually defoliating or eating the leaves off of live plants. And so in Montana, 2/3 of our state is rangeland. And these are an example of rangeland plants in Montana. We also have pastures, in other words, special pastures where they can graze, or we can actually cut these for hay as well. Plants are very important in our life, and they have they have many attributes, many values, many benefits to our lives. And one is food for us, food for our animals that we actually eat, and also for wildlife, food and cover. And they also have a value for filtering and keeping our water clean. So that's a very, very important, besides feeding the wildlife and the animals. So thank you for showing up and learning about how important plants are to our life, not just for food, but for soil conservation and water quality as well. So thanks for showing up.